Yo, what's going on, chat? We have another guest today. I think this has been one of the most requested, most anticipated, and also one of the most exciting interviews for me, at least, given the fact that we talk about Seclists a lot. But before I get started, let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Again, I'm using a new setup. I'm not really used to this new setup that I have. So let me know if you can hear me in the chat. Let me know if you can hear me, you can see me properly. And let me know if you're excited about this guest. If you're not familiar, Dan is the man. He has a awesome GitHub repo that a lot of you may already be familiar with. If you're not familiar with Seclist, I highly recommend going to GitHub, looking for Seclist. Seclist is probably the biggest word list you can come across. So if you're not familiar with it, Dan has put this together years and years ago. I'm not gonna, talk about it too much, but I'll let him explain it. But Dan has put this together years and years ago. And the point of this repo is that he pretty much collected a lot of data on different stacks, different software, different anything you can think of. He has some data on it. But we'll talk about it in a little bit when I bring him on. Quick few announcements. If you're new to this stream, I'm here every Sunday. I'm going to be going back to my regular streaming schedule here in a few days. I'm taking it day by day. I don't want to jump into it and get burnt out again. But if you're not familiar with my streams, I'm on here every Sunday. I have a guest that comes on. I either interview him like today with Dan, which I'll bring him on in the next few minutes, or I do some live recon myself, or I bring a friend of mine who can help me with live recon. So if you haven't seen the previous ones, you can go on YouTube. All of the interviews go on YouTube. The live recon doesn't, because if we find something sensitive, I don't want it to go on YouTube. We haven't done it yet, but it's just to be a little cautious. If you are new to bug bounty hunting or new to the stream, kick back, relax. I know someone said they want to do bottomless mimosas. Grab your drink of choice, grab some snacks. This is just an interview. I try to do the interviews to a way that everybody, whether you're new or you are a bug bounty veteran, you can also enjoy the show. What else? As of last week, I also mentioned that top donors and top subscribers, bits, and donors will receive a one-on-one session with me for 30 minutes. So if you are one of the people that's regularly gifting stuff, I appreciate you. You are going to get a one-on-one session with me. Egg Ryan, F Delete, and I think somebody else. I don't see your name anymore, but thank you so much for those subs. I really, really appreciate it. Last but not least, make sure you're on Discord. If you want to come hang out with the homies, we are all on Discord. So go on there, join us. All right, enough talking about me. Let's get this chat hyped up. And I am going to bring on Dan here in just a few seconds, but I need you guys to get loud, spam some emotes, hype up the chat, and then we'll bring on our guest. What about channel points for one-on-one? I'm working on it. It's kind of complicated, as Zero Kilo is also saying it, but I promise I'm working on something. I'll make it work eventually. All right, should we bring him on? You guys ready? All right, let's add him to the stream. There you go. You're on, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing good. Chat, let me know if you can hear Dan. I'm not going to do an introduction for you because I feel like I wouldn't do it justice. Tell me, man, who are you? For people that don't know you for some reason, who are you? What do you do? And how long have you been in InfoSec?
So I've been in InfoSec for about 20 years, actually. I guess 21, 22, something like that. But I started right at the very, very end of the 90s. And
Okay.
yeah, I started off as like a general InfoSec practitioner, like IDS, firewalls, all that kind of stuff. And then went right into offensive security right after that. First on the network side, and then into the application side. And then transitioned pretty quickly into a lot of advisory and consulting stuff. And I've basically always kept this OSINT recon stuff going the whole time. It's been like a constant thread through the career.
I feel like So for people that are watching this and aren't familiar with you, I think you don't do bug bounties, right?
No, not usually.
But you have done a lot of work that's being used in bug bounties and like the offensive security area, right?
Yeah. So I, excuse me, I essentially do the same exact stuff as bug bounties because I'm using it for other processes.
Mm-hmm.
Usually either in like a red team capacity or in a blue team capacity. So I'm basically trying to, the thing I'm absolutely obsessed with is not being surprised. So I love the idea of essentially when you're looking at a site, if you have a site that you're really cared about, whether it's yours and you're trying to defend it, or you have someone, a friend site or something, and you just want to make sure that they're somewhat safe. Like I just want to put in all the things that I want to know about that site and have them run continuously. I want to have them run continuously so that if they pop up, I'm notified immediately and I can go check it out before someone else does.
Right.
And of course, that's the same exact methodology as like, bounty. In that case, you're trying to get there before someone else gets the bug. But to me, it's really the same. It's like, how many ways can you interrogate a given site and get the answers back continuously?
You said something about red team and blue team. What's your experience like as far as like red teaming and blue teaming goes?
So I'm pretty much always kind of in both camps,
Okay.
doing that for companies, essentially building programs. So like building programs, red team programs, or building blue team programs. But mostly it's just running automation, honestly, that just keeps going. And this is mostly on the website, not on the NetSec side. I haven't really done too much NetSec stuff in a while because I've been really focused on basically Recon and OSINT.
So, as someone that's new in OSINT, what's your biggest advice? Where do I start?
So my biggest advice is to be very clear about the questions that you wish you had answers to about a given target, and don't think at all about tech when you first start. When you start thinking about a target, just make a giant list of everything you want to know. And a friend of mine, Jason Haddix, we think very similarly along these lines. It's like methodology first, right?
Yep.
And for me, that's questions first. It's like, what are all the things that I want to know? And you basically whiteboard that out. You basically whiteboard that out and make sure that's solid. And then what I do is I go and just find the best tools of the time to match to that. And if nothing exists, you write your own tool. And then importantly, you could swap those things in and out based on the performance that you're getting, right? Like I've seen several tools, like a mass is one for me where I was heavy into it.
Yeah.
I would get away from it for months. And then they would come out with a new release. I would be back into it for months and it would just sort of oscillate, right? So it's really important to me that you have the set of questions, which makes up the methodology. And then you just move tools in and out of that system to have the best performance or the best results. And oftentimes what I'll do is run multiple and concatenate them all together.
Right.
Or I'll find the best one and just use that one.
So we'll come back because I think there's a lot here to unpack and talk about. We'll come back to it in just a bit. I want to kind of understand about your background a little bit before we jump into the technical aspects of hacking and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
How did you get into hacking? What you said you've been in InfoSec for 20 to 21 years. How did you get into it? 20 years ago, how did you hear about InfoSec? What got you to go, oh, hacking? Like, I want to do that. How did that start?
Yeah, it was actually in university. It was during like Code Red and all kinds of crazy worms. And the university network in Georgia, where I happen to be, I'm from the Bay Area in California, but I was in Georgia because of the military. And when I got out, I went to college in Georgia. And
Okay.
the way the university was set up was just giant flat network. It's 168.1.8. Actually, I know the whole IP address range, but I won't say the whole rate. But it's 168.1.8 is like the class B that it was on. And it was literally, you're just like one hop away from every other IP address on the entire university network. And the whole network was being absolutely destroyed. Like every Windows box was just falling over. And I had a friend, two mentors early on, a guy named Jason Orms and a guy named Ken Swain, basically taught me like what a server was and what Linux was, like very quickly after I learned like what a computer was. So I just like dove immediately in, and Jason Orms was managing the entire network for this part of the campus, and he took a job at Fermilab and left,
Yeah.
and he basically gave the whole thing to me. So I was running around the campus installing Linux and replacing boxes as they were falling over, and just trying to keep this network alive. And it was basically just defending the network from real attacks. I was going to do pre-med. I was working in the computer lab, getting ready to do a completely different education. And then someone's like, oh yeah, this and that and server and this and that, and watch out for hackers or whatever. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it captured me 100%. And within a few weeks, I was defending the network and installing Linux and learning what Linux was and then installing Linux. So it all happened within the course of like 6 months. I went from not knowing anything to having like my own office and everything. I was in charge of defending the whole campus network.
Wow.
And I was coordinating with other campuses within the state to try to help them as well. And then my first job out of college, I actually started on like night shift, just monitoring like IDS, like blue team type stuff. And then I started writing articles. The first one was the TCP dump article. And that was like, super late 90s or early 2000s. And basically I was writing it because I was explaining it to myself. So I put it on my own website. I would just explain the technology in my own words. And then I would put it on my own site. And then I started getting a lot of traffic. So I just started writing more and more, and it just accelerated.
So I'm trying to understand it, because this is really cool. Your first exposure was to hear about Linux and just getting involved with it. And then your security, so that was technology pretty much. But with security, you did mostly, your start was like blue teaming kind of thing. It was like on the defensive side of things.
Yes, it was. It was definitely blue team, which at the time it wasn't even that, because I wasn't even in security. It was more like, hey, I want to use this computer. They're like, oh, that one's destroyed. You can't use that one. It's turned off. I'm like, okay, I'll use this one. They're like, oh, no, that one's destroyed too. I'm like, what's going on? So I'm just like thrust into this thing going on because of worms flying around the internet. So yeah, I was kind of like pushed into this blue teams scenario. And then of course the admin leaves and gives the whole thing to me after they gave me like a 10-minute primer on computers. So I'm just kind of like thrust into it. And then my first job was, I guess that was general InfoSec. It was AppSec, NetSec, all of it. Yeah. And then I immediately started studying offensive on night shift. And then I left there within like a year and a half, 2 years, to go right into a pen testing job.
That's brilliant. What made you want to do offensive instead of the defense side of things? Like, what got you intrigued in the offense side of things to want to go pursue it?
I think it was just that I don't know. I just saw how effective it was, and that we were getting destroyed by it. And I was like, I have to learn this. Like, how is this happening? How is this possible? And I just wanted to learn how to do what they were doing.
Very fascinating. Before we go to the next question, I just got to give a huge shout out to, I see Jason in the chat gifting a lot of subs, Bitcode, Ash, and Energy Brew. So just thank you so much, guys, for the subs and also all the gifts.
What's up, Jason? I don't actually see the chat. I only see you. So what's up, Jason?
Yeah, so I'm going to read this that comes into the chat, but I know a lot of people here are excited about having you on here, and I want to keep talking about your experience a little bit more. So you mentioned you were in a university. So is it safe to say you have a college degree in computer science of some sort?
Yeah, I actually left before I finished. I got I got like 11 hours left or something. But I left before I finished because I got an offered a job to go do the thing that I was at the time. I mean, at the time, I just thought it was worthless because the whole point of the university was to get offered a job.
Yeah.
And I did. I got the offer of the job based on knowing somebody who worked there, and they knew I was into the scene or whatever, and I got offered the job, so I took it. But yeah, I did a pretty traditional computer information systems, so a slash basically half computer science and half business.
Do you think that is it required to go in today's age, especially? Do you think it's a requirement to go to college? What's your take on school and degrees?
Oh yeah, this could be many podcasts. No, definitely not required. Definitely not required. The way I think of credentials now is get as many as you can because you don't know who will value them. Right?
Yeah.
So if someone is like, what was that?
I mean, like a hiring manager? You mean like as a hiring manager, or
you just don't know what social element you're about to be in the future that might respect a given credential. So you might live with a bunch of hacker friends, and they look down on degrees. So you never think you want to get one, right? And then you move to London and you're hanging out with a whole new group of friends and you go out drinking with them. All of them have degrees and they're like, hey, what's up? So what'd you get your degree in? And you're like, well, no, I don't value that. My friends don't value that. Well, your new friends do. And also the people who hire over in London, maybe they do as well. So it's like, you never know what's going to be valued. Like maybe the ethical hacker credential, which mostly universally is not super respected, but maybe someday in the future, you live in a universe in which that is valued. So if it's easy to get these credentials and queue them up, I mean, don't string them after your name and list them everywhere you walk around. That's ridiculous. But I mean, don't pretend that they're your identity, but it'd be nice if you could enter different social circles or different career circles. And someone is like, oh, by the way, do you have a CISSP? By the way, do you have a master's? By the way, do you have this? And you're like, oh yeah, I think so. Let me dig through here. Oh yeah, here's one, and just have it if they ask. But it doesn't define you. It doesn't define your skill set. So one reason I left without finishing was because my Unix teacher didn't know what SSH was.
Oh, rough.
They were teaching Telnet, and I'm like, okay, this is clear text. Let me show you a TCP dump. I can see all the traffic. And they looked at me, they were like, yeah, we don't cover that in this class, right? So they didn't know it was unencrypted. They didn't know what SSH was. It's just, and I was like, I have no time for traditional education when I could be teaching myself, right? And I kind of view certificates and certifications and traditional education the same, in the sense that you can learn more yourself, self-learned.
Yeah.
But it's two different value systems. Like if people value Bitcoin, then it has value. If people value a 4-year degree, then it has value. So you might as well just have it, but don't think that it represents your real security education or your real ability to find vulnerabilities or defend against vulnerabilities, because they're not the same.
Yeah, I think I've never thought of it in the like your social circle kind of thing, right? Like getting a degree because you don't know who you're going to come across. I've always thought about my whole thing with school was I finished my degree because I didn't know who the hiring manager is going to be. Are they the
100%.
kind of person that are an academic and like they're really big on school? Or is it somebody, you know, a lot of tech companies nowadays that don't care about, you know,
Yep.
school, they care about more experience. If you're a good learner, you know, you go getter, whatever that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I finish it because this is something that my family always tell me. It's like, you never know who you're going to go against in that job process.
Yeah.
You may be both equally as good, but this other person may have not even like a master's degree. You could have a bachelor's degree of computer science and you have no degree. They're going to go, he's more educated. He's more about learning than you are, even though that may not be the case. But on paper, you're kind of screwed, right? Because they're proving on paper that they have done more than you have.
No, that's exactly right. And so I've still got friends. Like most of my friends are like in the tech scene, and they're in like the bounty scene, or they're in some sort of technical scene, right? And so they respect me, they respect my peers, even if they have a degree, even if they don't. I've got some friends who I've been friends with for a very long time, and they kind of just still treat me like a child because I haven't finished those 11 credits. As if for some reason, if I were to finish those 11 credits, I would suddenly learn so much, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sitting over here, I read like 3 to 5 books a month, and I'm like constantly gathering knowledge, right? And it's like, they don't really read, and they don't keep their kind of education current, but because they did this 20 years ago, this degree, they just kind of look down on people who don't have it.
Yeah.
And to the point of like what you were taught, you want to be defended against those types as well. You don't want to give them an arrow to be able to shoot at you. So you might as well get the coverage. I would say if you can get a bachelor's, I would do it. I'm definitely going to finish mine because I'm thinking about other stuff like master's and maybe PhD. So obviously you need the earlier credential. So I'm going to go after it for a different reason. But as far as hacking, as far as technical stuff, hell no. Especially now. Even
Right.
like the last 3 to 5 years, the quality of content on YouTube, you could do a curated course on YouTube and learn way more than like a high quality education. Especially when a lot of the best quality education, it's all in like MOOCs. It's online anyway. So the only thing you're really getting is like the self-discipline of like making sure you're in the chair and you're listening, right? And driving you to complete the class. But as far as the content, absolutely not.
It's funny you say that. I actually passed all of my calculus courses because of YouTube.
Really?
I couldn't understand. So there was a teacher that I understood really well. He did pre-calc with him, and then he didn't teach Calc 1, I think. So I took Calc 1 twice, failed it twice, and he started teaching Calc 1 again. Took it with him, I passed. And then Calc 2 and Calc 3, I just couldn't understand the teachers, man. I just didn't get their style of teaching. It was just too much for me. I stopped going to class. I would show up on Fridays, take the quizzes. But Monday through Thursday, I would go to the library. Whatever he was going to teach, I was looking on YouTube, and I ended up getting a B minus maybe to pass. But if it wasn't for YouTube, man, like a lot of the stuff that even like a lot of the Java courses that you have to take in college, I don't like colleges because they teach you like Java and stuff, teaching you the stuff that I want to learn. At least our school was like that.
Yeah.
But you're nailing it on the head, like with how much content is on there. I don't care what you're learning. Like there is any topic you want, you just have to put in the umbrella topic into YouTube, and there is tons of people talking about it. And that includes bug bounties, that includes, programming, that includes science, chemistry, physics. Anything you can think of is on YouTube. And it's mind-blowing that you can learn it all on your own.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm actually diving into a whole bunch of math. I'm doing a little bit of machine learning stuff. So I'm learning a bunch of advanced math, but I'm learning it through 3 blue, 1 brown. This guy named, I can't remember Grant Sanderson, maybe is his name. Amazing YouTube channel. He just explains all this math. It's funny you mentioned calculus. I only passed calculus because I was able to store algebra formulas inside of my TI-92
I was,
calculator.
that's insane.
I'm so bad. I mean, I was better at calculus than I was at algebra. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
Let's talk about certificates, because you kind of brought those up, and I see a lot of people in the chat are bringing up OSCP. Someone said having your OSCP doesn't matter in a social circle, which is great. It's hilarious. But what is your take on certs? Before you answer, actually, do you have any certificates yourself?
Yeah, I did a bunch of SANS stuff early on, and I did CISSP,
Okay.
and I did a couple of auditor certs. I thought it was really cool to have technical CISSP because like everyone thinks it's great, and then like audit. So I did like CISA, I think, or CISM. I did one of those, and this was like 15 years ago. And I've kind of stopped pursuing the certs. I think OSCP has a lot of respect. I imagine it's probably declining just because certs work on an S curve where it's like nobody knows about it. It becomes super hyped, it peaks, and then it starts declining as more people get it. So I think there'll probably be a new one like that, like maybe offensive. I don't know who would come out with a new one, but those always move. I would say that similar to degree, if everybody loves a thing, just go get it. Like, because you don't know who you're going to talk to. So here's a good example. Let's say you're in the hacker scene and throughout your entire career, and you just have no interest in anybody who cares about a traditional credential.
Yeah.
And suddenly you decide you want to help the government, or you want to help defend against China or something. And a bunch of your hacker buddies are going to work for some elite group that's going to defend against China. And they're like, yeah, so you got to have your bachelor's or your CISSP or something. And you're like, shit, that thing that is totally worthless, I need to have. And they're like, yeah, sorry. And this has happened to people that I know. They try to get a job that they really cared about, but they care about this CISSP, or they care about some SANS search or something. So that's why it's good to have them. What did I do? I did GSEC back when you had to write a paper. That was a SANS certificate. It was actually the hardest. I think Jason did it as well. We agreed it was the hardest cert that we've ever done. It was really good. It was taught by Eric Cole, now Dr. Cole, I think. But and I also did a GCIA with Mike Poor. And that was a lot of fun. And I think I did maybe one or two more SANS certs, but I never kept them fresh.
Do you think for people that are new to InfoSec, are certs a good place to go? Like something like OSCP. I'm not gonna. Someone chat says CEH. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But
that's the one I was referring to earlier, CEH. Go ahead.
No, I just want to know, like, because a lot of people that watch these, the interviews especially, they want to hear, like, where do I go start? Do I go learn on my own? When do I do a cert? What cert should I do? Is it worth investing my time? What's your take on it? Like, do you think it's a good place to start to learn the hacker mentality, the basics, and whatnot?
So I think certs are good for one particular thing, which is getting the book that goes with the cert to use as an outline, especially if you're first starting. So, some other certs that I did? Actually, some of my favorite certs were the plus ones. So I did Linux Plus, Network Plus, A Plus. I was required to. I did like a VA thing. Yeah, Jason is saying do a cert if you have an employer to pay for it. I 100% agree. But my overall rule is if it's easy, get it.
Yeah.
So your parents are paying for your degree, go get it. Your employer is paying for your degree, go get it. Your employer is paying for a cert, go get it. Pick up as many as you can. But as far as someone starting off from the very beginning, I would say that something like Linux Plus or Security Plus, it's great to learn a broad set of skills, a broad curriculum. So Linux is a great example. I jumped right into Linux because I had to, and I started learning stuff very quickly within, a week or two of being exposed to it. But there were whole realms of Linux that I didn't know about because I didn't study it formally. So getting a cert will cover the surface area that you haven't covered before. So that's the reason I do like certs. Even the CISSP for that reason. Like if you ever need to know about fire hydrants, you get that covered with CISSP. Like I didn't know I needed to know how to put out a fire when there's no water suppression available, but evidently that's a skill I need to have.
They actually talk about that in CISSP? Is that for real?
Yes, unfortunately. Like how high should the fence be? How high should the fence be around a certain building? Like what type of fire retardant do you use in one kind of building versus another?
You're not joking right now.
Oh, no, this is serious. This is serious. And they got whole sections on it.
And
then laws. Yeah, tons of laws. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. It's like the non-hacker cert, 100%.
Oh my God. All right, moving on. No, so just to reiterate, I agree with like I don't have any certs. I like reading and learning things on my own. The whole reading book thing. I had someone ask me, it's like, oh, like, do you not have any like education goals? Do you don't want to go to school? And I was just like, no, I did school. I did labs around my school for extra years. I don't want to go back.
Exactly.
It was painful enough. I still have PTSD. I still I wake up from nightmares of me being in class and like failing a class that I needed for graduation. I still have those nightmares. Like it's not going away.
Yeah. So I've got a point for you. So this is it's a little bit orthogonal to what you were saying, but check this out. The best certs now, you know what the ultimate proxy is for both degree and certs?
What is it?
It's doing what you're doing right now.
On your own?
Having a channel, emoting, describing knowledge, pursuing knowledge, being curious in a public way, sharing the knowledge that you gain with others.
Yeah.
You have a username, you have a website, you have a YouTube channel, you have Twitter, you have all these channels. This is the clearest signal of competence now. So this is I get asked this question all the time, like how do I move forward in security? What do I do first? And my advice is always the same. Get a domain, get on Twitter, get on all these things. And even if you're an absolute noob, your first Twitter post should be, hey, I'm a total noob. What should I try to learn? Someone responds. They're like, oh, you should try to learn Linux, or you should try to learn buffer overflows, or you should try to learn Recon or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, cool. I'm going to try to do this. Publicize and describe your attempt to learn. Say, I tried this. I tried to use this code. This didn't work. People will show up and help you. And now what you have done, you've posted multiple things on your blog, which started out as like, I'm a total noob. How do I do this?
Yeah.
6 months later, it's like, hey, guess what? I figured out how to do this. Pretty soon Google figures that out. They start going to that webpage because you're now the authority on solving this one little problem.
Yeah.
And that snowballs. And pretty soon you're known for solving whatever type of problem that it is you happen to get good at because it happens to be interesting or you just got lucky or whatever the reason is. But over time, like nobody cares about the degree. Nobody cares about the search. Nobody cares about previous experience. What they care about is, are you curious? Are you seeking new knowledge? Are you lifting others and helping them explain their stuff and celebrating in their successes? And if you're doing that visibly, the people who I know who get the fastest jobs are people like you, right? So if there was a hacker job that was open and like Ben is applying, like tons of people on the hiring team or tons of people who are part of the hiring panel, they're going to be like, you're talking about Ben? You're talking about NAHMSEC? Oh yeah, 100%. The filtering is done. Nobody cares about what grades you got in your classes when you were in college, because they know you as a brand, as somebody who is pursuing knowledge and helping others do the same. That is 1,000 times more powerful than certs. It is the premier brand, or it's the premier way to broadcast that you actually care and are interested in an industry.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I started my channel, and I think I've said this a few times, is I want to do what I wish people had done when I first started 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
None of this existed. I don't care what people say. None of this shit existed 7 years ago. Nobody was talking about how to learn. Nobody wanted to share their secrets because they all wanted to keep it to themselves.
Yep.
And there wasn't a lot of resources, man. There was a handful of us that were doing blog posts back then. And if you go down to my Twitter feed, you scroll down to like 2014, 2015, I was posting on Twitter like, hey, does anybody know what param pollution is? I have no idea what I'm doing. I see this on the scanner,
Yep.
but I want to know what the hell this thing is. How do I use it? You can go see all those tweets. Or there was a few times when I was like, hey, can anybody help me with a SQL injection, for example? I'm still bad at them, by the way. I'm not good at SQL injections. But back then, I was just like, can anybody show me how to exploit this? I have a SQL injection, but I don't know what I'm doing. And God bless, there's a few kids in Egypt. I don't think they do any hacking anymore. If you're watching this, dude, hit me up. But there was a few kids out of Egypt that were making tools for SQL injections, and they really, on Twitter, they messaged me like, hey, I saw you posted this. Let me take a look at it. And they helped me exploit it and stuff like that. So Twitter has been absolutely one of the best things to ever happen. I mean, granted, there's lots of drama on Twitter, lots of Twitter drama in any industry, though. It's not just it's not just infosec. It's just, I think what Twitter is designed for is the toxicity of every industry ends up on Twitter, which is a part of it. But honestly, there are a good percentage of people that want to teach you how to get started. They want to answer questions, but you just have to make sure you're not just saying, how do I Linux? You actually go and say, how do I do this thing using the operating system that I'm in? And people want to help you when you are being more detailed about your questions and you're asking questions.
That is a great point. And I think what you're mentioning is super important. So the favorite hackers that I know are happy to come out and just be like, I don't know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at you look at Jason, you look at Stoke, you look at lots of these other people. Stuck, not Stoke. It's a Swedish thing, but yeah, you look at all these people like just so willing to put themselves out there and be like, I don't know how to do this, and get help from others. Like a lot of noobs think that it's like you have to know everything.
Yeah.
And you have to be like the expert, and you must never show weakness.
Nope.
It's the exact opposite for the best people. The best people are like, okay, here's a new type of wool. I know nothing about it. Who knows anything about it? Oh, and to your point also, here's what I tried. Here's the error I got. Like, show your work. Show that you actually put in the work. It's like people who ask for help in the industry. You're likely to get help from somebody if you're like, I read all these tutorials, I tried all these things, and now I'm stuck here in this specific place. I'll reach out. I'll spend time on a Sunday night writing them a long email.
Yeah.
But if someone is like, teach me how to hack, that's hard to do, especially with all this YouTube out there. It's like, what do you mean? Just type how to hack into YouTube and you'll get a million hours of study.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna regret saying this, but I read all my DMs almost. But I pick and choose who I answer to. I answer to people 100%. That are messaging me like, hey Ben, I've done this and that. I'm stuck with this thing. What do I do? Or people that are complimenting whatever I'm doing, but you don't have to compliment. What I'm trying to say. You don't have to compliment to get an answer. I appreciate it, but I would just rather have you send me a question exactly what you want, detailed, than you saying, my least favorite thing, can I ask you a question? You already did. You already did. You had one chance. It's not that I don't want to answer it, but it's like I'm going through these, 20 DMs a day, 30 DMs a day. I'm clicking on what gets my attention. Like, this person is serious. They want my help. I'm going to respond, because if I tell them go do this, they're not going to come back and say, but I tried. No, there's no buts. You haven't done it yet, unless you do have the wrong resources. But my least favorite thing is, can I ask you a question, or how do I hack? It's just like, I can't help you with those. Those questions have been answered. Go through my Twitter feed, not just mine. Hundreds of other people have answered these questions.
I've actually got macros set up to respond with a full write-up
on Twitter.
So Yeah, so I've got it all through the OS, so I could just respond quickly, and it expands out a snippet that's like, okay, here's where you start, blah blah blah, and that sends them off in a direction that like curates the knowledge. And if they respond back and they're like, I don't have time to read that or something, just that's not somebody you want to help,
It's
because
an
they're
overnight
not
scheme, yeah.
they don't want to help themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I try to give them something, but not too much, because you don't know if they're one of the time sinks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the way you approach somebody to get their help, it sends a very good signal of who you are and how much work you're willing to put in.
Totally.
You said something about blog posts. You mentioned you were asking questions of, I want to learn this thing, and then you would go and write something about this solution to become the authority. Is that why you have so many freaking blog posts on different tools? Is it your obsession that you want to learn how to perfect these tools? You go do it for a month or so, and then you publish the results?
Exactly. So I would usually just pull up the man page and then just be like, okay, which one of these do I want to learn how to do? If I wasn't forced into it by some other workflow. Oh, nice. Security is over here as well. That's very cool. Yeah, so 100%. So I would try to learn something, but then I wouldn't trust that I had learned it unless I would write it myself. So I would write down what I believe I had captured. Well, there you go. Yeah, this is what Jason was saying. Writing about your learning, put it into best practice. 100%. So it's like, if you think you know something, oh, this goes back to like Richard Feynman, or maybe it was Einstein, I can't remember, but it's like, if you think you understand something, get on a stage and explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, yeah, 100% I know about cross-site scripting. So you do this, this, and this, and you're like, well, actually, hold on, is it here? Or maybe I don't know. And so I would get in that position and I would be like, okay, if I can't explain it to myself where I could read it perfectly, then I don't know this. So I would force myself to write a tutorial for every subject that I was trying to learn. So I've got hundreds of them up there now. Over time, I probably got to like 10,500 posts probably on the site overall. I pruned most of them because a lot of them were like 1 or 2 lines. But Feynman learning technique. Yeah, that's probably something about explaining. If you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it. 100% believe that, and that's why I'm so obsessed with tutorials, because it proves to my own self that I actually understand something.
What you just said about if you want to get good at something, go on a stage and explain it. If it wasn't for public speaking, dude,
yeah,
I would have never been able to overcome my imposter syndrome. Just the fact that, I'm going on a stage, this is getting recorded. I need to make sure I can explain this thing. And then when I did my Udemy course, this is like something that I've never talked about, but you don't realize how much you don't know until you're trying to teach people. People think it's easy to make a course, or everyone's making a Udemy course, everyone's making a YouTube channel. Dude, it's not easy. It's so much work to try to explain, even cross-site scripting. And you go, wait, just like you were saying, did I cover this thing? Did I explain it properly? I look at my team I have a team that I work with when I record. They don't know much about hacking, but I look at them and I go, did I sound like a fucking idiot in this portion? Like, was I doing too many circles? And if they say, no, we kind of understood what you meant, I'm like, okay, if you guys are not technically understanding, then I'm doing a proper job. But it's just, it hit different when you were like, if you really want to learn something, go on, a stage. And I was just like a glass just shattered in my head. I'm like, when I did SSRF things, if it wasn't for me trying to explain this to a mix of technical and non-technical audience, then I wouldn't have known how to master the expansion of SSRF. Or if it wasn't for the course, I wouldn't be able to teach the basics of these things. And I'm learning things because of my course right now. A lot of people that watch my streams, they know I'm really bad at this organization stuff. I have to learn stuff and get good at it because I have to teach people how to do it. And it puts a lot of pressure on you when you have to explain it to other people.
Well, exactly. And you expose yourself to people who ask really smart questions that'll make you change your mind. Like sometimes like you're explaining SSRF or whatever, and they're like, well, sure, but why don't you just do it this way? And you're like, well, because, oh, actually, that is a better way.
Yeah.
And it's like, people know stuff way deeper than what you're usually covering in a course or in a tutorial. And I get all the time, people are like, yeah, you could just use this flag instead of that flag. And I'm like, oh, shit, I guess that's true.
On the topic of hacking and just the basics of it, what's your take on knowledge of like code, like knowing how to code? Is it required for hacking? Because with bug bounty, it's a little bit different. People have different takes on it. What's your take on it? Do you think you should be you don't have to be a full stack developer, but it helps. What's your take? Like, where do you think people should stand? How much do they need to learn about coding versus, security fundamentals and other things? Because with hacking, it's not just coding, right? It's like knowing networking, knowing programming, knowing basic security, understanding web, whatever you're attacking, or operating systems, whatever, and whatever else. What is your take?
I guess my take, I don't know if it's still controversial or not. A couple of years ago, it was controversial, but I think you need to know how to code.
Okay.
I think you don't need to be a full stack developer, and I don't know too many hackers who are. There are some, and they tend to be pretty good. It's like if you have the hacker mentality, which is fundamentally about curiosity, and you add the ability to code to that, it's an exponent. It's a superpower. Yeah. If you can code and you're not curious, you can't really be a hacker. You have to be curious, I think, fundamentally. But there are a lot of people who are trying to get into hacking or offensive or defensive security of any type. And if you only know things at like a CISSP level, like you're good with fundamentals, you will always be dependent on people who can code. The moment you have an idea that's kind of interesting, if you can't translate that idea into something practical, you'll always be reaching out and say, hey, is there someone who could script this for me? Is there someone who could code this for me? So that slows down your progress. If you could turn ideas into action or into a small little tool or a little utility,
yeah,
you're just much more effective as a security person. I think that everyone should know programming fundamentals, like loops and storage and data structures and stuff like that. And you should be decent at translating that to multiple languages. Like, oh, I could do that same thing in JavaScript, or I could do it in Python, or whatever, right? You don't need to be a developer. You don't need to be able to make websites that have middleware and talk to the back end and JDBC and all that.
Right.
But I do think coding matters. I think it matters a lot.
What languages do you recommend for people that want to get into the offensive security part of stuff to learn? Shell first, yeah,
and probably Python next,
okay.
And then Go.
Really? Python, Shell, and Go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shell first, because Shell is like the closest to the system. Jason and I both really love Shell. I still do most everything in Shell, and then if I need to do complex HTTP stuff, I switch to. I used to switch to Python, and now I'm switching more to Go. So, yeah, I would say stitch everything together. Assembly. Someone's asking about assembly. If you're into the reverse engineering scene, anything binary related, I would say absolutely assembler, but not if you're going to be just pure bounty or pure offensive security.
Assembly, it's really good for, like you said, reverse engineering stuff, but with it's a very niche thing that you have to go for, but I think for the basics and the majority of offensive security, you could do without assembly.
Yeah, so someone is also asking why Python doesn't Golang replace Python. So here's a good lesson, because I've seen so many of these trends. Ruby came along, and Ruby replaced Python for a long time. and everyone was like, oh, it's all Ruby now. So long to Python. And then machine learning came out, and so many researchers switched over to Python from R to do machine learning, and it kind of just lifted Python again. And now hardly anyone's doing Ruby. So think of it this way. In the olden days, there used to be a thing called Perl. And actually, I was in a marketing class in college, and I was reading a Perl book, and I was getting so excited about programming because I realized what you could do. I never wrote anything in Perl. I switched immediately to Python, but Python is the new Perl. Think of it that way. It's going to be around forever, and it's a thing that people keep coming back to. Okay, someone says I'm killing him. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's going to be around for a long time. Who knows if it'll get phased out or not. I think Golang is absolutely amazing, and maybe it'll be the new thing, but it's not as approachable as Python is. So I think that will be more of a barrier.
I think just back to your point, like any scripting language would be very helpful. I love doing stuff in Bash just because like there's something about it. I don't know what it is. It's something about it that's obsessively fun to play with Bash.
Well, it is the system. That's what I like. I don't need to translate from a language into the system command. Shell is the system command.
Right.
That's what I love about it.
And I think Python, I'm not really good at Python. It's something that's been on my to-do list for a very long time to get better at it. But the point of saying you need to know programming because you're going to get stuck, you're going to always rely on others, it's very, very true. In a lot of my cases before I picked up getting better at Bash, if you want to pull data from some website and you want to automate it, like how are you going to do that on your own? You know, you can use Burp Suite, but there's a limit to that. You have to probably learn how to use Burp Suite in that time versus just knowing how to do it globally with anything in Bash. And it's not really that hard to learn Bash at all, or just any shell, but just Bash itself. It's just I think it's just an easy thing to learn, and there are so many resources out there that teach you how to do all these things. You just have to know what to look for. Let's talk about Ctfs a little bit. Do you or did you ever play Ctfs, and do you think they're helpful for people that want to get into InfoSec and or an offensive security?
Yeah, I think they are somewhat helpful. I have played multiple. In fact, Jason and I met playing a Ctf in a Burp class. We teamed up. He scored most of the points, just for everyone to know.
I think I've heard this story before.
Yeah. I think they're cool. I am actually not so great at them because I have this thing where I'm trying to be perfect. I also have this other problem of like when I go a long time in between Ctfs, Ctfs are all about the tool set. In my opinion, it's like, do you have all your commands and all your tools ready to go so that the second you need it, you're ready to shoot it off? And what will happen to me is I'll be like, oh, I haven't done a Ctf in like a year and a half. And I'll walk into this class, oh, how hard can it be? I sit down. I'm like, okay, I need to send a custom request. I need to modify a TCP IP packet.
Yeah.
I'm going to use Nemesis. Oh, let me download Nemesis. Jason's over here. He's got 2 flags. I'm downloading Nemesis, and it won't compile. So now I'm freaked out. I'm just like, why am I so bad at this? Like, why didn't I build these tools before I got here? So for me, it's just like this real-time stress of the thing. In other words, if I were to get good at it, I would have to have my thing perfectly built, and I have to stay in practice, almost like a martial art. You can't like do it casually. You got to be really, really good and practiced.
I think in a competitive Ctf, absolutely right. But do you think Ctfs bring a value in like teaching you the basics and getting better at the fundamentals, or even beyond the fundamentals of hacking?
That's a great question. I hadn't thought about that. Normally when I do them, it's like, we got 20 minutes, we got to get the most flags, and it's like very time pressured. Those are the ones I don't like. I think the Ctfs or the challenges, I would say, in the WA,
Application Hacker Handbook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are fantastic. And I think, to your point, those are a great teaching tool. So yeah, I would agree with you there. They are. It's the high pressure ones that I stay away from just because I need to be ready for them. But as a teaching tool, 100%.
Yeah, I think I used to not be a fan of conference CTFs. It was just so unrealistic for a while, and then I realized that some of them aren't unrealistic at all. But the basics you learn from those CTFs are very, very good in a hands-on way, where you get to learn from other people if you're on site. I picked not my first lock, but this was one of those combination locks. I picked one of my combination locks for the first time at a conference at San Francisco before the COVID stuff shut down, because it was a part of the CTF and no one wanted to do it because everyone's like, oh, I don't want to pick a lock. I was like, I want to go do it. I literally looked over the dude's shoulder and he's watching a video, and I'm like, how are you doing this? He goes, watch this video. And we're both just sitting there doing this combination thing, and it's like about pulling it and how it feels while you're pulling on it, and you get to learn. Like you realize, like, okay, back to what you were saying, everything's on YouTube, but also you get to see how others are doing it. And that was one of the most, like, it was a wholesome experience of seeing, okay, I don't need to know everything, but by doing these CTFs, I could find out what areas are fun for me and what I want to learn more, or what I'm lacking, or whatever it is, or how to learn it. So I think CTFs are a really good way to just learn some of those stuff. And if you're new to InfoSec, it's one of probably the best ways to see what interests you. Maybe web isn't for you. Maybe something else is that thing that piques your interest, and it's a really good way of seeing what you can be passionate about.
Yeah, and I really like one of the points you made there. So the most interesting thing about CTF for me is, like, if you're hitting a wall and you just cannot see how to get past this thing, and then you find the answer and you realize it's a completely different way of thinking. I actually had a GitHub for these. Actually, at one point, I had a repo around CTF solutions, so I could remind myself of all the different ways of thinking that were different than I would normally think, because I wanted to have all those different techniques like built into my brain so that I could just call them easily, like from cache. And because I just think it's super valuable, because so many of them follow like the same sort of tropes, especially for web CTFs.
Do you still keep that repo current, or is that an old project?
No, I haven't messed with it. I think it's still there.
Before we switch, I want to talk about, this is live Recon, so we have to talk about Recon a little bit. And I want to make sure I don't keep you more than expected, especially on a Sunday. There's a good question that came in, and people in the chat also wanted to hear your thoughts on this. I'll put it on the screen, but I'll read it off. Can you ask him if he has any tips or advice for students applying for internships, like how to show off your skills on a blank resume, or maybe example projects to make in Python or preferably Golang?
So I think the answer goes back to what I was saying before. The best thing you could do for an internship is show the places that you're talking about what you've learned. So if you were to be like, go to sallyjones.com, and this is where I've charted all of my learnings over the last 6 months. Yeah. And so me as the hiring manager, I go to sallyjones.com, and I see that she's done all this different hacking stuff. She's tried all this different stuff. Oh, here's where I try to do the same recon tool in JavaScript as well as in Golang.
Yeah.
And then I go over to her Twitter account, and I see that she's talking about all these same things, and she's asking questions and getting feedback. I'm in. I know this person is engaged. I know this person is trying to learn, and I know they've been doing it for 6 months or a year before applying to this application. So it's not generated for the purpose of trying to get this job. There's a history here. Because that's the thing about an interview. It's a proxy for the thing that you actually care about. And as a hiring manager, the thing that you care about is like, will you be able to do the job in the future? Best possible way to know, look at the past. And that's what the website represents. That's what Twitter represents. That's what a YouTube channel represents. It means you are grinding towards improvement
Yeah.
in a consistent way. So if you show up to an internship and you're like, here's my website, here's my Twitter, here are all the different projects that I've done. Go to my website /projects. Here are all the projects that I've done. Well, as a hiring manager, I'm going to be like, yeah, this person is 100% the right person.
I think the website thing is absolutely awesome. With regards to bug bounties and like projects you have done, also like outside your website, explaining what the projects are. And so the way I did for my first job, I didn't have any background in tech, zero background in tech. All I had was bug bounties. So I listed myself as self-employed, and then I put every vulnerability type that I'd found.
There you go.
In parentheses, I would link to the blog post saying confirmed by Yahoo, confirmed by PayPal, confirmed by Microsoft, and link to those blog posts.
Yeah, and the logo of the program, is nice as well, right? It's like, look at all these brand names where I contributed to making them more secure.
There's a lot you can do, and it just comes down to what, have you done the work of whatever you're going to put on your resume? You just have to, do the work so you can actually put it on your resume. And it doesn't have to just be work experience. It could literally be stuff that you have done on your own, like you were mentioning.
Yeah, the other thing that's super valuable for this, I did a post on this, something like, I don't know, skills that hiring managers are looking for or whatever. If you can somehow intuit what the hiring manager needs, like sometimes hiring managers, it depends what kind of InfoSec job, but like at a big corporate one of the big things is like, find out if a technology works. Another one would be like, go audit the security of a new technology to see if we should even bring this thing in.
Yeah.
So if you could, in your internship, say, okay, here's what I've done, and you're kind of showing them the exact problem that they're trying to solve, they'll be like, well, that's exactly what I need, and here's a list of times that they already did it. So it's like, the more you know about the exact problem they're trying to solve, like show them that you've done it in the past. Because anything else is just a claim. Like if you claim that, oh, I could do that, that's nothing. If you say, I've already done it, go look at my notes, that's way more powerful.
Yeah. Having a solution for it and proof for it, it's an entirely different thing. All right, I'm going to try and speed through some of these questions. We have to talk about Recon a little bit. I know you're really good at it, and I want to talk about Recon. First thing I want to know, what does Recon mean to you?
What does Recon mean to me? To me, Recon means, like I was saying before, never being surprised. Okay. Asking a million questions and having the answers always ready for you. So what I do with the methodology is I ask a million questions. I did a talk on this called Mechanizing the Methodology. And this was at Red Team Village, I think, last year. And you should check that one out because it kind of breaks things down. It actually uses Jason's methodology as an example of how every methodology branch becomes a question. The question becomes associated with a piece of code. Right. And that code basically functions like a Unix command and produces output. And that output becomes an input to another one. And this is how I've built. So I don't do bounties, but as we're speaking, I have probably dozens of running campaigns. And they're all doing hundreds of different things and bringing them all together and sending me alerts in email and sending me alerts in Slack, because I never want to be the one who is surprised. There are multiple analogies for this. Some involving role-playing games, which I won't get into, but it's like, if you're going strength versus strength, that's one thing. But if you know how you're going to be attacked before you get attacked, you have time. And time is everything in this game, right? Yeah. So if you look at all the different tools that are available and all the different things that you could do with each tool. So FUF, for example, like that's a directory tool. It's a fuzzing tool. So I do so many things with that tool. It's insane. And I bring it all together into output, which you've got to check out that that video if you've not seen it. But when you go and get that content and bring it back, so here's an example that I did a long time ago when I was doing network pen testing. So I would go to a site, I would sit down, unpack my stuff, and I would start attacking the domain and try to get domain controller access and domain admin, essentially. And so I would start writing all these scripts to automate the thing. And I would just go from place to place, and within about an hour and a half or so, I would have domain admin and we'd be done. I start writing the report. I got it to the point where I would initiate the scans. The results of the scan would go into a different tool, and it would just chain until I could sit down, unpack, plug in, press go, and just wait. And it would come back and I would be done. And that is why I'm obsessed with Recon, because you can have that running against your own infrastructure at all times. I just assume there are bounties running against any website that I have. I mean, I've got canaries all over my stuff. So I could see when someone who's doing bounty comes and touches my stuff, I get alerts. Like, I'll find them, I'll send them an email and say congrats, like, and just be like, yeah, nice job for finding that. I've done all sorts of things with, like, I had one called like finances.xls, and it was actually like a zip file, and it fired off a little piece of JavaScript that sent me a thing, basically, if they opened it up. And it was like, what did I name it? I named it something like Taxes 2016 or something. And just like all this kind of fun, juicy stuff, plus messing with headers. I'm obsessed with the idea of always knowing what is happening. That's why I think this old style of, like, every once in a while run a scan, I just don't like it. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing every minute. I'm checking every minute to see if something has changed. Yeah. And some things it's only like every hour or whatever, but I don't do like weekly scans or anything like that. I saw recently that someone else was doing, I think might have been Tom, was doing it with sleep. Have you seen that?
I have not. Yeah,
so basically doing automation, like let's say a FUF command, and he would put like sleep 100, and then it would just
keep going.
It would stop. See, it would stop for 100 seconds. The reason I don't like that one is because you have all these background processes, and if the host stops, then all your processes stop. Right. So what I like to do is put it into cron, and basically cron holds like 15 different chains, and all the chains run and feed each other, and then I just sit back and look at Slack. So I could be out and about at any moment, and suddenly I see a Slack, knock, knock, a new subdomain was added. Well, I'm going to be the first one to know about that because I check every minute.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, Recon means never being surprised about either something that's happening on your target if you're attacking. The moment that vulnerability shows up, you should know. Yeah. And if you're the defender, the moment it shows up on your side, even if it's not a vuln, even if it's just new attack surface, I want to know immediately.
What are some of the tools you use for your Recon?
FUF, I use a lot. I use a lot of Tom Nom Nom's tools, a lot. The other tool set that I use the most is Project Discovery.
Yeah.
I am so like enamored with their stuff. It's of a quality level that it's just a lot of the stuff I've done myself in the past, but not nearly as high of quality. There's another one called SemGrep. Have you ever heard of SemGrep?
SemGrep, no.
Yeah, it's like a code analysis tool, but really it's like semantic evaluation of text, essentially. So it can extract out certain things that you really care about, kind of like GF from Tom Nom Nom.
Yeah.
But I just basically chain these all together into workflows.
So Tom Nom Nom's tools, I assume you are talking about Find Domain. No, that's not Find Domain. Asset Finder is one of his. HTTP Probe, Meg, those kinds of tools, and then Project Discovery. I'm assuming Nuclei, and I can't think of the other ones. HTTPX maybe. Are the ones that you're referring to?
So Meg, yes.
Okay.
Fuff, yes. There's a new one by Detectify, I believe, called Page Fetch, which is a rewrite of well, it's not an actual rewrite, it's just a new version of it's basically a Go-based Chrome requester of a web page. Because I did that. I've got a one-liner where I could do that with Chromium. It's essentially like curl, except for it uses Chromium to request the web page. So I chained that together. I use a lot of different ones from Project Discovery. Yeah, Nuclei definitely. There's another one. Oh, is it Actions PD? PD Actions? Oh my goodness, that thing is insane. So PD Actions, I think that's the name of it. It is basically an automated. This thing is basically like a Recon MSSP all built into a single tool.
Okay.
It has the and it's backed by GitHub. So the whole thing runs in GitHub Actions. So it's actually, this is crazy. Like this probably won't even exist for very long because it's too awesome. They're using GitHub Actions to run the Recon processes, which means it's actually GitHub standing up the Linux box and running all the tools. Because you can see clearly in the code, you can see the Ansible of how they build the box and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I'm looking at their README. It says their workflow is you echo a website, it feeds it to Subfinder, and then does DNSX to filter DNS records. They use Nobu to do port enumeration, HTTPX for probing, obviously, and then Nuclei to do vulnerability scanning, and then they notify you through Slack and all the things. Very cool. I got to look into that. That saves me a lot of time.
Yeah. So most of us already have like that kind of infrastructure already built up. I think it's just really cool to see what they did. And of course they use Nobu instead of like Mascan or Nmap because it's their own tool. But oh yeah, that's another tool that I use, Notify. Notify is really cool. I think we're probably getting close to time. I actually set up a little thing to show how you could build like a little MSSP type situation using Slack, but I think we'll save that for another time. Because yeah, this Notify tool is really powerful. So I got a thing set up where you basically pipe to Notify and it shoots it right over to Slack. So for example, if you have a new subdomain that's found, like I get it in Slack, and it allows you to send notifications to like Discord as well and like lots of other services.
So because we're almost at time, I have a few good questions that are non-hacking related. I feel like we talked a lot about like a high level of hacking and how to get started. I'm going to reach out to you. Maybe we can bring you on for another live recon, but this time it's because I've wanted to do an interview with you for a while. The way it works is I interview people and then I bring them on to do actually like hands-on hacking a little bit. We'll schedule that for maybe post DEF CON. Maybe we can have you on here if you're up for it and just kind of show us some of the things you do. We can do some hacking together.
Sure.
Then we'll take it from there because I feel like a lot of people would want to see. It's not so much about what tools you use; it's mostly like how do you use those tools because people do them differently, right? Good question coming in. Are you going to DEF CON this year, by the way?
I don't think so. I've got a friend who, if they decide to go, I'll probably go. But other than that, I don't think so.
Is that friend the person asking this question right here?
That is him. Damn it, Jason. Jason, are you going?
Are you going?
Has this changed? The
real question is, Jason, are you going to DEF CON? Because I think
I don't think that we're going based on our last conversation, but definitely next year.
I will be there. If you guys both show up, please let me know. I would love to see you in person.
100%.
But that's just funny. Like I have a friend and I'm like, is this a friend asking this question?
That's him.
All right, one last technical question. Burp Suite. What are your favorite plugins?
Oh, I've got a whole list. I actually haven't done much with Burp lately. My
Okay.
favorite one, I've got 3 different ones that I alternate between for one particular bug, and it's like the main thing that I use Burp for. I think it might be called Authn or Authx. It's essentially you pass multiple cookies in,
Yeah.
and it tells you if using forceful browsing will allow a lower user to get to a higher level of content.
Yeah.
And that's like one of my favorite bugs. But generally, I've been doing full Linux-based automation, not using Burp.
Very cool. Let's jump into my favorite portion of the interview. This is the part that I get excited about. Do you have a routine every day?
No, not right now. I'm
Okay.
about to. And I'm also about to put that routine on GitHub. And check this out. So I had this talk a long time ago about algorithmic versus osmosis-based learning, and I'm a real huge fan of this algorithmic learning. So essentially, you have a methodology for doing X,
Yeah.
and when you go to a talk, if you get something from the talk, you update your methodology and you do attribution to like why you updated that thing, so that if you end up like what I'm about to do. I just read this book, How Not to Diet. I read this other book by Dave Sinclair about aging and stuff like that. And yeah, so what I'm essentially doing is I'm building a methodology from what to do from waking up to going to sleep. And each line of that, I'm going to attribute to all the books that I've read to arrive at that decision. So if someone wants to see exactly why I do this workout routine, or I skip breakfast, or I do whatever, it's a full list of references, and it's in the GitHub history.
I'm a fan, man. I want to see this in action.
Yeah,
That
I'm
is
about to do it.
incredible.
Like literally starting next week, because I might be actually moving. So yeah, this is a big thing I'm thinking about. But my routine for the pandemic was overeat and not exercise enough. That was my routine. It's not on GitHub, but anyone could follow it.
It's coming to a GitHub repo near you in the next week or
Yeah.
so. You speaking of books, I've been big on reading a lot more recently. I think I'm trying to do 1 book a month because I used to not read at all. What are some books you recommend for just personal growth, non-tech? I'll give you some of my favorites. I've done like Atomic Habits. I did some books on OKRs. Don't ask me why.
OKRs are awesome, man.
Personal growth has been something that I've been really working on. Atomic Habit is what kind of like got the gears moving, if that makes sense.
Yes.
What are some other ones that you recommend? You said you've been reading things that have been pushing you to do, things differently. What are some favorite ones? David Goggins' book, You Can't Hurt Me, is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't read that in the chat, I really recommend it. Can't Hurt Me is one of the best books you can come across.
So Subtle Art of Not Giving.
The fuck, yep.
Yes.
It's a really good one.
That is unbelievable. So here's what I would say. There's a number of books. I could send a full list, or you can post it. Stoicism. Get into Stoicism. So I read, when I first got into it, this was like the year before the pandemic. So I guess 2019, I guess. I went and read all the canonical books for Stoicism, which was like 15 different things, starting with Marcus Aurelius, the book Meditations. So I read that, and I read the entire cluster around it. But then I read the cluster around that, which is modern interpretations of those things. So there's a book by Bill Irvine about Stoicism. Essentially, this is the most powerful life methodology, in my opinion, because it's all based on resilience. It's all based on the fact that you can't get, well, so here's fundamental concept, which is amazing. There's a difference between the thing that happens and how that thing makes you feel. They are completely disjointed. You have control.
Say that one more time.
There's a difference between the thing that happens and how that thing makes you feel. There is a separation between the two. So you have control over your reaction to an input. You don't have control over the inputs. And you shouldn't try to think that the inputs actually determine everything, because they don't, and you don't have control over them. But you do have control over how you respond.
Yeah.
And that is like the central tenet, I think, of Stoicism, and it's really powerful, and it's all throughout all the different books in different ways. But Ryan Holiday is one's an event and one's an emotion, 100%. And you can control the emotions. That's the thing. So you combine that with mindfulness. You combine that with some books by like Ryan Holiday. He writes about this a lot. Really good stuff.
You said Meditation by Marcus Aurelius. Is that what the name was?
Yeah, Meditations. Yep.
I'll look into it. I literally added it to my. I've been the one thing that I've realized, when I was like, I trigger happy and I was like, oh, it's all in your head. The thing that I've learned a lot, it's like you're in control of this. Like your thoughts don't make you. I saw this quote that it was like, you're an observer of your own thoughts. Just pick him, throw him out if you don't like him. Like, don't let him get bigger than what they are. It's a thought. It's going through your head. It's going across. If you don't like it, like question it or battle that thought that you don't agree with, and don't let it become your entire existence, whatever it is.
Yeah, that is a really powerful concept. So that's the central tenet of mindfulness. It's actually really weird. So if you like massively hurt your elbow, by the way, I recommend this app called Waking Up by Sam Harris. It's like the best meditation app in my opinion. But so check this out. There's a thing that you could do with any sort of pain or suffering. But let's just take the example of your arm is like broken. If you try to think about peanut butter, a peanut butter sandwich while your arm is broken, you will be destroyed because your arm is hurting so much. If you take your mind and you turn it and you stare directly into the pain, it goes away. If you notice, if you pay close attention to the thing that's actually happening to you, you could do this with anger. You could do it with sadness. You could do it with anything. If you stare directly at it, you don't think about anything else but it fades away. So, and what this means is that distraction is essentially the cause of a lot of this suffering.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. I can't talk about this too much, as I did a piece with a blog post with a company, and they asked me about personal like mental health, and I opened up a little bit about my depression and anxiety that I dealt with last year. I won't get into it right now, leave it up for the blog, but the thing that I wrote in there, the TLDR, is we all know what is causing our depression and anxiety. We're just too afraid to face it.
Yeah.
Deep down, if you ask yourself, what is causing my anxiety today? You know the answer. You damn well know the answer. You just don't want to admit it to yourself because you're scared of the change, what's going to come with it. Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right, man. Like I threw myself into distractions a lot, and then I just cut everything out. I disappeared. That's why I disappeared from streaming for a while. I just was like, I have to face this thing. No, there's not amount of alcohol, drinks, smokes, whatever, that's going to cause, you can numb it for a while, but until you face it, it's never going to go away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
On the topic of anxiety, depression, mental health, how do you deal with burnouts?
I rotate the inputs, and I usually switch the mode pretty extremely. So if I'm very much in a technical push and I feel technical burnout, I switch to, say, Stoicism, or I read fiction. I switch the channel completely.
For how long?
I don't really schedule it. I just until I feel relaxed. To me, it's like using a muscle too much. Yeah. It's like if you just curl like over and over, it's like your bicep is destroyed. Yeah. It's like switch to another muscle, right? And that's a huge part of it. I think in the case of the scene that we're in, like where you're public, the muscle is often presenting and displaying and being on a stage. And that is the bicep muscle that's getting tired, is that
Yeah.
you're constantly performing for others. And that becomes the thing that you have to switch off. And it sounds like you absolutely did that. And that's how you were able to come back.
Yeah, burnouts it's still something that I don't fully recognize a lot of times until I'm deep into it and I realize I'm no longer myself. But now I've came to the point, like with streaming, man, like I'll be honest, like when I go on these breaks, I'm like, are people gonna forget about me? Are people gonna come back, watch me again? Like, is my Sunday prime 11 to 2 gonna get taken away from somebody else?
Yep.
It's business. It's not personal. I get it. You know, people are gonna want the same. Yeah, you know, I complain about my life sometimes. I used to a lot, and then this is why it messed with me. It's just like people would kill to be in my position in some cases, and that also messes with your head because if you give up that position of my Sundays that I do my streams, you know, last week when I came online, there was like 200 people watching. I was just mind blown that people are still willing to come back and watch me. But now it's to the point that I'm just like, listen, like if I lose it. If I mentally lose it, it's not going to matter who are going to come back or not. They're not going to come back. I won't be here for them to come back.
Right. Well, yeah. So I'm having this conversation with so many people who are in our scene as well as similar scenes in other spaces. And it comes down to taking inventory of like, what are you ultimately getting out of this thing? Right. Yeah. And it's like, can you get that a different way? And how can you do the thing that you're doing in a sustainable way? Right. It's like, can you do this in a way? So I've had a show for like 5 years and I have a very strict rule, which is I only do a thing that I'm going to do naturally anyway. If I feel myself have to muster up the courage or the strength to do it, then I say no to that because I know I can't do it consistently for 52 weeks a year. So I whittled down the effort that I do to make sure it's right inside this line. And in my case, it's reviewing the news and doing analysis on the news, which I have to do every week anyway. So I just turn that natural thing that I'm doing into this output to maintain sustainability. But I think the Stoicism conversation will really illuminate some of that. It's really powerful.
I'm gonna read some of this stuff and I'm gonna give you a ring when I'm done with it. But it's just I don't know. It's one of those things, man. Like I realize, like you know, you said that the best. Your fans are always going to be there. The ones that really, you know, the people that I call the homies are gonna show up no matter what.
They're gonna be there, man. But
it's a hard concept to come to terms to know. Like people give a shit. Mm-hmm. They're gonna show up. If you disappear for 3 weeks, no one's gonna not want to show up. If that makes sense. But there's a constant struggle of knowing, like, am I going to be replaced? Am I going to lose my position, or is somebody else is going to come out and do it again? And I've came to the point of just saying, screw it. Like,
well, it's really dangerous. So check this out. It accelerates with the amount of effort you put into it. It gets more dangerous. So let's say you decided, wow, I've got 200 people watching. Oh, I've got 2,000 people watching. You know what? I bet I can get 4,000 if I posted it every day.
Yeah.
What if I posted twice a day? And what if I bought a bigger studio? And now it's like every waking moment is stressing about the next show.
It takes over you. Yeah.
It takes over.
For a while, man. It took. That's why I was so depressed and I had so much anxiety last May and June. It was literally because of that.
Well, and let's say you post on Wednesday and you're like, oh, I had to go take care of my dog on Thursday. I'm back on Friday. And you see some comment. It's like, where were you Thursday? You suck. And it's like, I skipped a day to take care of my dog. Like, can I have a little bit of time? And they're like, you said every day. And now it's not every day. And it's like, suddenly you're beholden to this and it just takes over.
Yeah, I had this routine of like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I stream. Wednesdays, I'll post from YouTube. Do this on, and I was just like, dude, fuck it.
It's too much.
It was just too much. And I realized like the biggest one was, I don't know who told me this, but what I just said earlier, if you're not here, dude, none of it matters. If you're mentally not here, you check out mentally, you lose it, then you never want to come back again. None of that's going to matter. And when I do NahamCon every year, it just mentally drains me.
Totally.
That's why I disappeared. I was just like, okay, I put this show on. It was great. It was beyond my expectations, but I just got to go. I'm not going to post anymore. I'm just going to.
And here's the trick. In what you said earlier is like, you can't tell when it's happening again. This is where you've got to put a system in place that says, I will not cross this line. Because I know if I cross this line, that's when I become blind to it happening again. Because like, you could be like, I feel fine. Let me add another show. I'll do a Wednesday and a Sunday. Oh, and I'll do one on Monday too. And pretty soon, 6 months later, you're like, why am I so like depressed and sad?
Yeah.
Oh crap, I'm back to 3 shows a week again.
Yep.
How did that happen? And I think anyone who's doing this, who's writing, you know, putting themselves out there, doing streams, giving back to the community, like, we all have to take care of each other.
Yep.
You know, I think a lot of us talk on the side, and I think it's super important because we got to be willing to say to each other, hey, you know, too much, are you okay? And basically be that safety check for them.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm not streaming regularly on Saturdays and Mondays, and I want to go back to it. I said it earlier when I was doing my intro. I don't want to go back to where it was just a drag. It's just, I can't, I'm probably going to do Mondays more, Sundays and Mondays, but I need a Saturday. I go hiking on Saturdays now, and I've realized like I need that one day off to myself. Working 7 days a week isn't fun, especially when you work full-time 9 to 5 in the weeks, and then you do pen tests after work, and you're working after work, and then you don't even have a Saturday, Sunday. I realize like a lot of it stems from that. A lot of it comes from me not taking care of myself and letting my brain just breathe. So Saturdays now, if I have time, I'm going to stream, but I'm probably going to go back to my Mondays just because it's during work hours. I can make it happen, but I need a day to myself from now on, and I got to be selfish about it. I thought it was selfish, and I hate that I said I got to be selfish, but it's not selfish. I just got to keep myself first.
You got to. It's like, put your mask on first. There's lots of metaphors that use for this. Like, put your mask on first is one. The other one is like the sustainability of a forest. It's like, sure, you can pull the trees out as fast as you want, but you're going to run out of trees.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've learned to delegate. Agent Steele has asked me, like, have you thought about hiring some help? I have a team now that I work with. They're my really good friends, really good videographer. I do some fun stuff with him. If you go on my Instagram, you can see how like I paid one of my videographer and $6,000 in once. We do fun stuff like that with him. But it's been helpful having I don't do this for money. It's great to make some money from it, but I realize like when I have people working with, I can at least say, okay, I don't have to worry about editing videos because that itself is stressful.
Oh, 100%.
So just delegating things and also letting things break. At this point now, I'm like, fuck it, let it break. I'll deal with it when I can. And then I went through a prioritization thing for myself. I was like, okay, is this a priority? Nope, toss it out. We don't need it. I prioritize, and that's why like live recon is it a priority? Yes, I want to do it. I have fun doing Sundays. I look forward to my Sundays. It gets me excited.
Well, yeah, and don't ask yourself if you could do this for a month or for 6 months. Ask yourself if you could do this for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? Because because those extra shows and that extra time, it'll sneak up on you and it accumulates. It accumulates, and pretty soon you'll just be like, why do I not want to get out of bed?
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I agree. One last one, imposter syndrome. It's big in every industry, especially ours. Do you still deal with that at this level?
I honestly don't. But I think it is because I've already accepted that everybody is a noob. I read a lot of autobiographies that have nothing to do with security. I read a lot about people who spend their life's work, a lot of philosophers who would go into a room and for 7 years by candlelight, write a giant treatise, right? And basically go and release it to like a philosophy salon in France. And everyone looks at them and says, you're a complete joke. This is garbage. Never show your face in this salon again. And the person would go back, and for another 7 years, they would write it again. And the third or fourth time, they got the recognition. And it's like, that combined with Stoicism, it basically just tells me to keep pushing, and it doesn't really matter if people like it or not. If you're driven by the curiosity, then I feel like it is a defense against imposter syndrome. If you're driven by the fact that it's okay if I don't know it, I think the thing that powers imposter syndrome is the belief that you have to know everything. And that's the thing that saves me from it, is that I'm okay not knowing everything, and most things actually. And I think if we were to teach in the industry that most people don't know everything, in fact, nobody knows everything, and that everybody is a noob, then it would take that pressure off and you wouldn't have so much imposter syndrome, right? I mean, the hacking scene is just so heavy with like eliteness and tiers and all this stuff, and that is what's putting the pressure on imposter syndrome.
Yeah. It's very, I don't want to say I'm too good, but I feel like a lot of people have that mentality of, I'm too good for whatever. It's just, who cares?
Yeah, 100%.
Who cares? I don't deal with imposter syndrome for the exact reason. I've become okay with saying, I don't know how to do these things. People come like, oh, you should try hacking this. I'm like, I don't know how to do it, but if you guys want to laugh with me at me sucking at this, let's do it. Like, I'm down.
Yep.
But I've been okay with just saying, I don't know what this thing is. I'll look into it. Let's look at it together. Let's Google some stuff.
Yep.
That's absolutely the key, is to be okay with putting it's an ego thing. It's okay to put your ego aside and say, I don't know everything. I'm okay with it. Like, controlling your ego is one of the biggest things, I think.
That's it.
On the topic of, we talked about imposter syndrome, burnouts, routines. One last question before we do a fun game that I put together. It'll be very, very quick. How do you balance stuff like with life, work, and then learning and hacking and improving yourself? Do you have some sort of a thing you follow, or is it just, I do things as I feel like it? How does that work?
I generally stay pretty freeform, but I do try to do a little bit of a plan every once in a while. So I really try to track what I'm trying to do long term. There's this guy who writes for New York Times called David Brooks, and he talks about eulogy goals versus resume goals. It is ultimately powerful. It's like resume goals is like what you're trying to get on the resume or whatever. Eulogy goals is what you want your friends to say at your funeral.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. So now plan out your next year, and your streams and your walks and your vacations and your time at conferences and music festivals. And are you going to hang out with your friends? What are your friends going to say? What are your family going to say about you if you were dead? And what you do is you reverse engineer and you say, okay, well, I wouldn't want them to say that I was really good at writing tools on GitHub. I would like to say them something else. So is the effort that I'm putting into my daily life contributing to being a good person?
Yeah, I have. I resonate with that a lot. 2 years ago, a friend of mine passed away from a sudden. His heart just stopped. Went to his funeral, and the amount of people that showed up was just incredible. Just people that I hadn't seen in years. I didn't even think that would show up. Nobody had anything bad to say about this guy. And I just didn't get the same vibes from him. We were really good friends, but, I just didn't feel the same. I was always nice to him. He was always nice to me, but it was just, I saw him in a different light because of our dynamic.
Yeah.
That was a turning point, a eulogy thing of, if I die, I want people to say he was a piece of crap, but he also did these things. Like, we all have our, we have done our bads, or we have had the light that we looked at perspective, right? But putting it the way you did, resume goals and eulogy goals, it's the perfect way to put it. It's just, I say jokingly, when I do all these streams, I do, charity work, I do whatever it is. It's to, when I do pass and people show up to my, my funeral, I wasn't just a piece of crap. I had also other things that I did on the side to make up for all the degenerate stuff that I've done in my life.
Totally.
There's a good question that came up. Masoma is asking, do you have any productivity guilt? I'm guilty of it, but I'm just curious to see if you feel guilty about not being productive enough.
I would say yes. I would say I do have that sometimes. So it's funny. I see everything as a methodology. This is why I'm so into methodologies for recon. So the way I think of it is I reverse engineer from those eulogy goals and like my ultimate meaning that I'm trying to do. And one of the big ones for meaning, if you study it across cultures, is doing something that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
So in my mind, explaining things and helping others is the equivalent of like raising children or doing something just bigger than yourself, right? And so what I try to do is I try to say, okay, is the thing that I'm doing right now helping towards that? So for example, if I'm watching some TV show by myself and it's just kind of like a garbage TV show, I'll get done with the series and I'll be like, that was a giant waste of time. I should have wrote a tutorial. I should have wrote an essay. I should have done something. And however, if I'm with a loved one or a friend or a companion and we're watching it together and having fun and smiling and laughing, 100%, that is time well spent. So I think of productivity guilt in terms of like, is it helping any of my long-term goals, including eulogy goals and not resume goals? So just because it doesn't help me directly or I don't make any money off of it, I don't really care. As long as I'm helping something or someone. That's the way I think about that.
It's such a hard thing to get over, though, to be honest. With like, there's days when I do a lot and I feel good, but still at the end of the day, I go, could have done more. But there's no cure for it. I don't think I want to say it's in my head. It's something that you have to eventually get used to overcoming as you reflect. So I've learned to reflect every few months, compare myself only to myself from 3 to 6 months ago and see where I'm at. And I think that's been very helpful to not feel guilty of whatever's going on in the world.
So what you just said is really powerful. So here's a really great metric for how healthy someone is, especially in the scene of what we do, of like producing content. How happy are you when you see other people, including your friends, blowing up, getting super popular, getting massive kudos? If the first thing you think is, oh my God, I'm so happy for them, you're healthy.
Yeah.
If the first thing you think is, oh fuck, I should not have rested, I should not have took that vacation, I should not have walked my dog, I should have made more content because now they're getting credit and I should have done that and blah blah blah. That's an unhealthy place, and that's why you have to constantly reevaluate what matters to me. One of the primary things that matters to me is seeing them do well as well. So it's like, if you can align those two interests so that them doing well is also you doing well, that's a healthy place.
Yeah, I can't sit there and say I haven't been in that position of seeing, somebody's success and going, damn, I should have done that. Or dang, I shouldn't have been gone for a few weeks. Now it's to the point of like, I'll celebrate with people. I will celebrate with them about whatever the success is. I think there's more beauty to celebrating with people than getting jealous or hating about whatever they're doing. But I never thought of that as being a healthy thing. It was just more of a growing up, growth, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the not competing with anybody else but yourself has been a very good place to go. It's just competing me against me and just me reflecting on, 2-3 months ago, whatever that is. Yep. I think that was it, man. This is probably one of the longest interviews, but this was very, very insightful. I can't thank you enough for being here. Chat.
Thank you for having me.
Give it up for Dan. This was very useful and very helpful. I think it unpacks a lot. We didn't do too much on. I wanted to talk about Seclists a little bit more, but we can talk about it when we bring you back on. But I think there's something cool about talking from other people's perspective of how they've overcome hardship or how they've gone to the level they have gone. So I really appreciate you being here and, sharing your experience and your knowledge with us. I'm definitely going to read the books that you mentioned. I took a note of it somewhere. I'm going to actually order the meditations book soon. But I want to end this with a fun game. The way it works is I give you a word, and you just tell me the first thing that pops into your mind.
Okay.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe like 10 of them. It could be a sentence, it could be a story, it could be whatever you have in mind.
Okay.
I'll make it easy. The first one I'm going to say is Jason Haddock's.
Friendship.
Seclist.
Project.
OSCP.
Respected certification.
CEH.
The opposite.
InfoSec.
A strange animal.
Burp Suite.
History.
CTF.
Fun.
YouTube.
Amazing.
Recon.
Love.
Project Discovery.
Respect.
And last but not least, Tom Nom Nom.
Wonderful.
Thank you, man. This was all the things I could come up with for this. It's just this way of ending every interview as a part of the tradition of live recon.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate it so much. And can't wait to have you back post DEFCON to do some live recon together.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. We'll talk soon.
We'll see you.
Have a good Sunday. All right. That was it. This was an incredible interview. I can't thank Dan enough for being here. I had a blast. I'm mind blown with some of this stuff. Looking forward to reading some of this stuff that I have on here. I have another guest coming up next week. If you want to stick around, come around, hang out with us next week, next Sunday, same time. It is 1:30 my time right now. I usually go on 2 hours earlier than this, so around 11:30. If you know the tradition of hanging out with me, every time we do a stream, we end up going into a raid. We'll usually raid somebody that's doing something similar to ours. So stick around. When we go into this raid, I need you to be very loud, representing the homies, and be respectful, be nice. Other than that, I'll be back next Sunday. Come hang out with me on Twitter if you want to know about what I'm doing, my speaking schedule. Discord is also a good way. I'll be around. But that's it. Enjoy your weekends. Enjoy your Sunday evening, Sunday morning, afternoon, wherever you're at. Let's raid. And I will talk to you all next week. Same channel, 11:30 a.m. California time. I love you. Be nice to each other. And I'll see you soon. Peace.